My roommate keeps stealing my boyfriend, claiming she is protecting me, so I gave her the perfect boyfriend to steal. The first time I caught them, it didn't look like cheating. That's the thing about betrayal, it rarely announces itself. It hides in small moments. Lingering glances, half smiles, the kind of silence that feels louder than words. I remember standing in the hallway, my hand still on my bedroom door, when I heard her laugh. Vanessa. Soft, sweet, intentional, not the loud, carefree laugh she used with me, but the one she saved for men. My stomach tightened. Daniel was supposed to be in my room, waiting for me. We were halfway through a movie, and I'd gone to grab my charger. 2 minutes, that's all I was gone. 2 minutes, but when I stepped into the living room, they were already close. Too close, not touching, not doing anything you could prove, but standing in that invisible space that people only enter when something has already started. Oh hey, Vanessa said quickly, stepping back like she just remembered I existed. Daniel cleared his throat. We were just talking. Just talking. That phrase would come to haunt me. I forced a smile. About what? Vanessa shrugged, reaching for a glass of water like she needed something to do with her hands. Nothing serious. Nothing serious. But her eyes flicked to Daniel. And Daniel didn't meet mine. That was the moment something shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. Like a crack forming in glass. That night, I couldn't sleep. Daniel lay beside me, scrolling through his phone. His body angled slightly away from mine. Are you okay? I asked. Yeah, why? I hesitated. You and Vanessa seem comfortable. He let out a small laugh. Too quick. Too dismissive. She's your roommate. What do you expect? Me to be awkward? No, I said slowly. Just normal. I am normal, he replied, his tone sharpening just enough to make me feel like I was the problem. And just like that, I dropped it. Because I didn't want to be that girlfriend. The insecure one. The paranoid one. The one who imagines things that aren't there. So I turned over, faced the wall, and told myself I was overthinking. But behind me, I could feel it. The distance. The shift. The beginning of something I didn't yet have the courage to name. It didn't stop there. It grew. Vanessa started showing up more. Not in obvious ways. Never obvious. That would have been too easy to confront. Instead, it was subtle. Calculated. She'd walk into the living room when we were watching something, always dressed like she had somewhere better to be. Crop tops, loose shorts, lip gloss that caught the light just right. Oh, I didn't know you guys were here, she'd say. Liar. This was our routine. Same time, same place. Every night, Daniel would sit up a little straighter. Not obvious, but I noticed. I started noticing everything. The way she'd sit on the arm of the couch instead of the empty chair. The way her hand would brush his shoulder when she laughed. The way she'd ask him questions, personal ones. What was your ex like? What kind of girls do you usually go for? Do you believe in love at first sight? I should have shut it down. I should have said something. But every time I opened my mouth, the words felt stupid, petty, like I was making something out of nothing. And Vanessa, she played her role perfectly. Girl, you know I would never, she said one afternoon when I finally hinted at it. Her eyes were wide, offended, almost hurt. That's your man. Your man. The way she said it felt rehearsed. I trust you, I told her. And in that moment, I meant it. Because I wanted to. Because trusting her was easier than accepting the alternative. The night everything changed didn't feel dramatic. There was no storm, no shouting, no warning, just silence. I came home earlier than expected. My class had been canceled, and I decided to surprise Daniel. Maybe we'd order food, watch something, be normal again. I unlocked the door quietly, stepped inside, and that's when I heard it. Her laugh, low, close, intimate, not from the living room, from the kitchen. My chest tightened as I walked closer, each step slower than the last, like my body already knew what my mind wasn't ready to accept. And then I saw them, not kissing, not touching, but standing so close their breaths were practically shared. Vanessa's hand rested lightly on the counter right next to his. Daniel leaned in slightly, listening, focused, like she was the only person in the room. Like I didn't exist, like I had never existed. Something inside me snapped, not loudly, not violently, just quietly, the same way it had started. Oh, I said. They jumped apart this time. Too fast, too guilty, too obvious. You're home early, Daniel said. Vanessa grabbed a random glass again. Always the props. Yeah, I replied, my voice calmer than I felt. I am. Silence stretched between us, thick, uncomfortable, telling. And in that silence, I finally saw it. Not just what they were doing, but what she was. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't coincidence. This was a pattern. And somehow, I had just become her next target. I didn't confront them that day. Not because I was scared, but because something colder had taken over. Clarity. For the first time since that uneasy feeling started, I wasn't confused anymore. I was watching. observing, connecting dots I had been too trusting to connect before. That night, I barely spoke. Daniel kept trying to act normal, asking what I wanted to eat, suggesting a movie, but every word felt rehearsed, like he was performing a version of himself I had already stopped believing in. Vanessa. She avoided me, which, ironically, told me more than anything else ever could. Because Vanessa didn't avoid things, she controlled them. I lay in bed later that night, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. Not just from today, from months ago, from before Daniel. And then it hit me. Not like a sudden shock, more like a slow, suffocating realization creeping up my spine. This had happened before. Mark. I sat up abruptly, my heart starting to race. Mark had been my boyfriend last year, sweet, attentive, little too eager to please, but he had been mine. Until he wasn't. We didn't even have a proper breakup. One day, he just started pulling away. Texts became shorter, calls became rare, excuses became constant, and then out of nowhere he ended it. I just don't feel the same anymore, he said. No explanation, no closure, just distance. I cried for weeks. And Vanessa, she was right there, comforting me, holding me, telling me I deserved better. God, I felt sick, because 2 weeks later, I saw them together. I remember that day too clearly now. I had gone out with a friend, trying to distract myself, trying to feel normal again. And then I saw them, at a cafe, sitting across from each other like it wasn't wrong, like it hadn't just destroyed me. Vanessa had spotted me first. Her eyes widened but only for a second. Then she smiled. That same soft, innocent smile. Wait, this isn't what it looks like, she said as I walked over, my hands shaking. Mark looked guilty. Of course he did. But Vanessa, she looked composed. It just happened, she added quickly. There it was again. That phrase, like betrayal, was something that just slipped and fell into place. I remember laughing. Not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. Of course it did, I said. And I walked away. Back then, I blamed him. I called him weak, disloyal, easy. And Vanessa, I forgave her because she cried, because she said she never meant to hurt me, because she swore it would never happen again. I pressed my hands against my face now, sitting in the dark. How did I not see it? How did I not see it? Then came Tund. And suddenly, everything replayed itself like a twisted script. The flirting, the closeness, the emotional shift, the breakup, and then her again. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't just how things happened. It was her. It had always been her. I got out of bed and walked to the kitchen. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Vanessa's door was slightly open, her light still on. I stood there for a moment, staring at that small gap, thinking, breathing, choosing. Then I knocked. Come in, she called, her voice light, like nothing in the world was wrong. Of course. I pushed the door open slowly. She was sitting on her bed, scrolling through her phone, looking effortlessly put together even at midnight. Hey, she said, smiling. Everything okay? I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. Did you ever like Mark before I dated him? The question hit the room like a dropped glass. Sharp, unexpected. Her smile faltered just slightly. Why would you ask that? Just answer. She laughed softly, shaking her head. No, of course not. Lie. I could feel it. Not because I had proof, but because I finally understood her. Okay, I said slowly. What about Tund? Another pause. Longer this time. Then she sighed, putting her phone down. You're being weird, she said, her tone shifting just enough to make it sound like I was the problem again. I'm being observant, I replied. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and for the first time, I saw it. Not the sweet, supportive roommate, not the innocent friend, but something sharper, colder, calculating. You think I'm stealing your boyfriends? She asked, tilting her head. The way she said it. Not defensive, not even surprised, just curious, like she wanted to hear me say it out loud. I held her gaze. I think, I said carefully. This keeps happening in a way that doesn't feel accidental. Silence. Then, she smiled. Not the soft one. Not the friendly one. Something else. Something that made my stomach drop. Maybe, she said lightly, they just like me more. The words didn't hit me like I expected. They didn't hurt. They didn't break me. They clarified everything. Because in that moment, I understood her completely. This was never about the guys. Not really. This was about winning. About stepping into something that was mine and taking it. Proving she could. Proving she was better. I nodded slowly. Got it, I said. Her smile widened slightly, like she thought she had just asserted dominance. Like she thought I would back down. Like she thought I would keep playing the same role I always had. The forgiving one. The understanding one. The one who loses quietly. But this time, I wasn't confused. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't even angry. I was done. As I turned to leave, she called after me. You're not seriously upset about this, are you? I paused at the door, looked back at her, and for the first time, I didn't see my roommate. I saw my opponent, and I smiled. Not warmly, not kindly, but knowingly. No, I said softly. I'm just paying attention now. And that was the moment the game changed. I didn't break up with Daniel immediately. Not because I still wanted him, but because I needed to be sure. Sure of the pattern. Sure of her. Sure of myself. So I watched. And once you start paying attention, you can't unsee things. Daniel started changing. Subtle at first. He laughed louder at her jokes than mine. Looked at her a second longer than necessary. Started mentioning her in conversations that had nothing to do with her. Vanessa said this. Vanessa thinks that. Vanessa actually agrees with me. Vanessa. 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 It was like I was slowly being erased from my own relationship. The breaking point came 3 days later. I was sitting on the couch, waiting for Daniel. We had actual plans for once. Dinner, just the two of us. He was late. Of course he was. My phone buzzed. Daniel, hey, something came up. Rain check. Something inside me went cold. Not hurt. Not surprised. Just done. I stood up slowly, grabbed my bag, and walked out of the apartment. I didn't text back. I didn't ask questions, because I already knew where he was. The cafe was only 10 minutes away. The same one. The exact same one. At this point, it almost felt like tradition. And sure enough, there they were. Vanessa and Daniel, sitting close, laughing, leaning in like they were sharing something private, something intimate. I stood there for a moment, watching them, waiting for the pain, the anger, the heartbreak. But none of it came, because this time, I wasn't the victim. I was the witness. I walked up to the table. Neither of them noticed me immediately. Of course they didn't. They were too busy being wrapped up in each other. Wow, I said. That got their attention. They both froze. And for a split second, guilt flashed across Daniel's face. But Vanessa, she recovered instantly. Hey, she said, like this was a casual run-in. What are you doing here? I let out a small laugh. You tell me. Daniel stood up quickly. I was just about to call you. Don't, I cut him off. My voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. It was sharp enough to stop him mid-sentence. I looked at Vanessa, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel compared. I didn't feel less than. I just saw her. Predictable, repetitive, boring. You can have him, I said simply. Silence. Daniel blinked. What? I mean it, I continued, shrugging slightly. I'm done. Vanessa tilted her head, studying me. Suspicious, confused, because this wasn't how I usually reacted. No tears, no confrontation, no bigging, just release. You're serious? Daniel asked. I met his eyes, and whatever he saw there, it made him uneasy. Very. I turned to leave, but Vanessa's voice stopped me. You're not even going to fight for him. There it was. Not concern, not sympathy, but disappointment. Like I had just ruined the game for her. I glanced over my shoulder, smiled faintly. No, I said. You already won, right? And then I walked away. I didn't cry. Not that night. Not the next day. Not even when I heard him move his things out a week later. Because losing Daniel didn't feel like a loss. It felt like clearing space. That's when I met Ethan. It wasn't dramatic. No instant sparks. No cliche moment. Just quiet. Real. We met at a bookstore. I was reaching for a novel on the top shelf, and he casually grabbed it for me before I could even struggle. Here, he said. Simple. No flirting. No performance. Just ease. Thanks, I said, glancing at him. And for a moment, I paused. Not because he was overly charming, but because he wasn't trying to be. We started talking about the book, then about others, then about random things that somehow turned into an hour-long conversation. And the whole time, he listened, not waiting for his turn to speak, not trying to impress, just present. When I mentioned Vanessa briefly, carefully he didn't interrupt, didn't jump to conclusions. He just observed, the same way I had started to. So he said finally, leaning slightly against the shelf, she doesn't actually want the guy. I frowned. What do you mean? She wants the position, he replied calmly. The idea of taking something that belongs to someone else. My chest tightened slightly, because that was it. Exactly it. And the guys, I asked. He shrugged. Some people are easy to influence, especially when they think they're being chosen. I studied him. You figured that out fast. He gave a small smile. I pay attention. Something about that made me pause. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was the only one seeing clearly. We started dating slowly. No rush. No pressure. And for the first time, I didn't introduce him to Vanessa right away. Not because I was scared, but because I was thinking, planning. 2 weeks in, I finally told him everything. Every boyfriend, every pattern, every coincidence. And when I finished, He didn't look shocked. He didn't look confused. He just nodded. So it's consistent, he said. Yes. And predictable. I hesitated. Then, yes. A small, almost amused smile appeared on his face. Good. I blinked. Good. He leaned closer slightly, his voice calm, steady. Then we can use it. That's when I realized something. Something dangerous. Something powerful. For the first time, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was preparing. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? I asked quietly. His eyes met mine. Sharp, certain, yes. And just like that, Vanessa stopped being a problem and became a plan. The plan wasn't complicated. That's what made it so effective. We weren't going to trap Vanessa. We were going to let her expose herself. She only moves when she thinks she's unseen, Ethan said one night. Scrolling through his phone like this was just another casual conversation. We were sitting in my room, the door slightly open. Music playing low just enough to make everything feel normal. But she's not careless, I pointed out. She's subtle. He nodded. Exactly. Which means if we push too hard, she pull back. I leaned against the headboard, thinking. So we don't push. Ethan looked at me. We invite. And that's how it started. The next time Ethan came over, I didn't keep him to myself. I didn't close the door. I didn't create distance between them. I did the opposite. I made space. Vanessa noticed immediately. Of course she did. She always noticed shifts, opportunities, weak points. Oh, you're home, she said casually when she walked into the living room, her eyes landing on Ethan like she had just happened to find him there. Yeah, I replied, stretching slightly. We're just hanging out. Ethan glanced up briefly. Not too interested, not too distant, just neutral. Perfect. Vanessa lingered. She didn't sit immediately. She hovered, waiting, measuring, adjusting. You don't mind if I join, right? She asked, already moving toward the couch. I smiled, warm and bothered. Of course not. That was the first invitation, and she took it. At first, she played it safe, light conversation, general questions, nothing obvious. But I could see it happening. That slow shift, that quiet recalibration. She was studying him, learning him, the way she always did. And Ethan, God, he was good. He didn't fall into her rhythm. He didn't give her immediate validation. He made her work. So what do you do? Vanessa asked, crossing her legs, angling her body slightly toward him. Consulting, he replied simply. No extra details. No effort to impress. That sounds vague, she said with a soft laugh. It is. She blinked, just for a second, thrown off. Because most men would have taken that as a cue to explain themselves, to prove something, to earn her attention. Ethan didn't. And that hooked her. I saw it in the way she leaned in a little more, the way her tone softened slightly, the way she adjusted her approach. Because now, he wasn't easy. And Vanessa didn't just like winning. She liked challenges. Over the next few days, we fed the pattern. Carefully, deliberately. I stopped being territorial, stopped reacting, stopped watching them opally. Instead, I acted comfortable, secure, like I had nothing to lose. And that confused her. I could see it, because she was used to resistance, to tension, to that subtle competition she thrived on. But I gave her none of that. And slowly, she started pushing harder. It began with small things, accidentally running into Ethan in the kitchen, asking him questions when I stepped out of the room, laughing just a little louder at his responses. Then came the messages. Ethan showed me the first one that night. We were sitting in his car parked outside my apartment. He handed me his phone. Look, Vanessa, hey, hope you got home safe. I stared at the screen, a slow smile forming on my lips. She moves fast, I murmured. Ethan smirked slightly. This is her warming up. I scrolled. More messages followed. Casual at first, then personal. You seem different from the guys she usually dates. L. Do you actually like her? Be honest. I let out a quiet laugh. She's already trying to separate you from me. Yeah, he said calmly. Step 2. Step 3. I asked. He looked at me. She makes her move. And just like that, everything clicked into place. Don't shut her down yet, I said, handing his phone back. I won't, he replied. And I believed him. Because this wasn't flirting. This wasn't betrayal. This was strategy. Days passed, and Vanessa got bolder. She started dressing differently when she knew Ethan would be around. Not for attention, for effect. More fitted clothes, softer tones in her voice, longer eye contact. And the most interesting part, she started ignoring me. Not completely, just enough. Like I had already been moved out of the equation. Like I was no longer competition. Like I had already lost. One evening, I walked into the kitchen and found them alone again. Deja vu. Same positions, same proximity, same energy. But this time, I wasn't the girl standing in the hallway, confused and hurt. I leaned against the counter, completely at ease. Am I interrupting? I asked lightly. Vanessa smiled. Too quickly. Too sweet. Of course not. Ethan glanced at me. Just for a second. But in that second, I saw it. We were in sync. She was just telling me about your ex, Ethan said casually. My eyebrow lifted slightly. Oh, Vanessa laughed softly. Nothing bad, I promise. I smiled. Oh, I'm sure. Silence flickered for a moment. Uncomfortable. Unbalanced. Because now, she didn't know where I stood. And that made her reckless. Later that night, Ethan texted me. Ethan, she's about to do it. Me, you sure? Ethan, yeah. Pause. Then, Ethan, she thinks she's winning. I stared at the message for a long moment. A slow, steady calm settling over me. Good, I whispered to myself. Because the moment she felt certain, the moment she believed she had me beat, that's when we take everything back. The party was her idea. That's what made it perfect. We haven't had people over in a while, Vanessa said casually one afternoon, scrolling through her phone like it wasn't a calculated suggestion. We should do something small. Just friends? I looked up from my laptop. Sure, I said easily, too easily. Her eyes flicked to mine quick, sharp, searching, suspicious, but I just smiled. And that was enough, because in her mind, I had already lost the night at the party. She went all out, of course she did. She wore a tight black dress, simple, but intentional. The kind that didn't scream for attention, but held it. Her hair was perfect. Makeup soft but precise. Everything about her said the same thing. Watch me, and I did. But not the way she wanted. The apartment filled quickly. Music, laughter, conversations overlapping, people moving in and out, drinks in hand, energy building. And right in the middle of it all, Vanessa and Ethan. She stayed close to him. Not obvious enough to be called out, but obvious enough to be noticed. Her hand brushing his arm when she left. Her body angled toward him no matter where they stood. Her voice lowering slightly when she spoke to him. Like the rest of the room didn't exist. And Ethan, he played it perfectly. He didn't chase her. Didn't lean in too much. Didn't give her everything. Just enough attention to keep her hooked. Just enough distance to make her want more. I stayed across the room most of the night, watching, waiting, letting her build the moment she thought she controlled. Then it happened. She pulled him aside. It was subtle. A touch on his wrist. A quiet come here. A glance over her shoulder to make sure no one was paying attention. But I was. I always was. They moved toward the hallway, away from the noise, away from the crowd. Exactly where she thought she could finish it. I followed. Not close enough to be seen, but close enough to hear. I don't think she's right for you, Vanessa said softly. There it was. The opening line. The script. The same one she had used before. Ethan didn't respond immediately. I could almost feel her leaning in closer, pressing. She doesn't even see you, Vanessa continued. Not the way I do. My chest tightened, but not from pain, from recognition, because she wasn't even being original. I've been trying to ignore it, she added, her voice dropping lower. But I can't anymore. Silence. 1 second. 2, 3. Then, funny, Ethan said calmly. Something in his tone shifted the air. Vanessa must have felt it too, because she paused. What? She asked. That's exactly what she said you'd say. Silence. Heavy. Sudden. Cracking. I stepped forward. Slowly. Deliberately. And this time, I didn't stop at the edge. I walked straight into the moment. Hi, Vanessa. She turned so fast it almost looked painful. Her eyes widened. Not dramatically, not loudly, but enough. What is this? She asked, her voice tight. I didn't answer her. Not immediately. Instead, I looked at Ethan. He nodded slightly. That was my cue. You know what's interesting? I said, my voice calm enough to cut through the tension. You always say the same things. Vanessa laughed nervously. I don't know what you're talking about. She doesn't appreciate you. I continued. Her smile faltered. She doesn't see you. Now her expression shifted. I do. Silence. People had started noticing. Of course they had. Voices quieted. Music faded into the background. Attention shifted. Vanessa glanced around, realizing too late that this wasn't private anymore. Are you seriously doing this right now? She snapped. Yes, I said simply. Ethan reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone. And just like that, everything unraveled. Hey, hope you got home safe, he read aloud. A few people exchanged looks. You seem different from the guys she usually dates. More whispers. Do you actually like her? Vanessa's face changed, color draining, control slipping. Stop, she said sharply. But he didn't. I don't think she's right for you. The exact words, the exact pattern, the exact script. You set me up, she said, her voice rising now, cracking at the edges. I tilted my head slightly. No, I replied. You just finally got caught. That's not fair. She snapped. You planned this. Of course I did, I said calmly. And you still walked right into it. That hit hard because that was the truth. She looked around the room at the people watching, listening, judging, and for the first time, Vanessa didn't look confident. She didn't look in control. She didn't look like the girl who always won. She looked exposed. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, grabbing her bag. "You're all insane." But no one stopped her. No one defended her. No one followed. Because the pattern was clear now. And once people see something like that, they can't unsee it. She walked out, fast, sharp, gone. Silence lingered for a moment. Then slowly, the room came back to life, but differently, quieter, more aware. Ethan stepped closer to me. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. I looked at the door she had just walked through, then back at him. And for the first time since all of this started, I felt it. Not anger, not hurt, relief. "I am now," I said, because she didn't take anything from me. Not really. She just proved exactly who she was, in front of everyone. And this time, there was no coming back from that. The apartment felt different the next morning. Quieter, not peaceful, just empty in a way that felt intentional, like something unnecessary had finally been removed. Vanessa didn't come home that night, or the next, or the one after that. At first, I thought she was avoiding me, but then the messages started. Not from her, from other people. Wait, has she done this before? I heard about Mark. Was that really a pattern? People were connecting the dots, the same way I had, except now, they had proof. I didn't respond to most of them. I didn't need to, because the truth was already doing the work for me. By the fourth day, Vanessa finally came back. I heard the door open late at night, soft, careful, like she was trying not to be noticed in her own apartment. I was in the kitchen. Of course I was, waiting. She froze when she saw me, just for a second, but it was enough. "Hey," she said, her voice quieter than I had ever heard it. No performance, no confidence, no control. "Hey," I replied calmly. Silence stretched between us, heavy, unfamiliar. She looked different, not physically, but the energy was gone. That sharp edge, that quiet superiority, that constant need to win. "I think we should talk," she said finally. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. "About what?" Her jaw tightened slightly, like she wasn't used to being questioned. "Not like this." "You embarrassed me," she said. I blinked. Once, slowly. "That's what you got from all of this." Her eyes flashed. There was no need to do that in front of everyone. I let out a small breath, almost a laugh, but not quite. "You mean like there was no need to go after every guy I've ever dated?" Silence. She looked away first. "It wasn't like that," she muttered. I tilted my head. "Then what was it like?" Another pause. Longer this time. And then, she said it. "I just liked knowing I could." There it was. No excuses. No fake innocence. No performance. Just the truth. And somehow, that made everything feel smaller. All the confusion. All the doubt. All the moments I questioned myself. Reduced to something so simple. So empty. "You needed that?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer, but she didn't have to. Because I finally understood something I hadn't before. This was never about me. Not my looks. Not my worth. Not what I lacked. It was about her needing to feel chosen, even if it meant taking something that was never hers. "I'm moving out," she said suddenly. I nodded. I figured. Another silence. Then, "You're not even going to stop me." I looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time, I didn't feel anything. Not anger. Not hurt. Not even satisfaction. Just distance. "No," I said simply. Her expression flickered, like she didn't know what to do without resistance, without the game, without me reacting. "This doesn't make you better than me," she added, almost defensively. I shrugged slightly. "I'm not trying to be better than you." That hit harder than anything else I could have said, because it meant she wasn't competition anymore. She was just irrelevant. She moved out a week later. No goodbye. No apology. Just absence. And honestly, that was enough. The apartment felt lighter after that. Not because she was gone, but because I was no longer carrying something I didn't even realize was weighing me down. A few days later, I ran into someone at a cafe. Not her. Daniel. Of course. He looked surprised, then awkward, then regretful. "Hey," he said. "Hey." A pause. "I heard about what happened," he added. I nodded. "I'm sure you did." He hesitated. Then, I didn't realize what she was doing back then. I studied him for a moment. Not angrily, just neutrally. "You did," I said. "You just didn't care enough to stop it." That landed, because it was true. He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. "I'm sorry," he said finally. I nodded once. "Take care of yourself, Daniel." And then I walked away. No closure. No need for it. That chapter of my life didn't need to be understood. It just needed to be over. Later that evening, I sat on the balcony with Ethan, city lights flickering in the distance, the air calm, still. Do you ever think about her? He asked. I considered the question, really considered it. Then I shook my head. No. He glanced at me. Not even a little. I leaned back in my chair, a small smile forming. She wasn't the prize, I said. A pause. And neither were they. Ethan smiled slightly, like he understood exactly what I meant, because this was never about losing or winning. It was about finally stepping out of a game I never agreed to play, and realizing I was never the one being taken from. I was the one letting go.